Hello guys, welcome back to KD Code. In this video, we are going to learn about one lost feature, that is classes and interfaces with TypeScript. And we know classes from modern JavaScript already. You can define blueprints for object with the help of class keyword here, class, right? And again, this keyword is supported in TypeScript, but it is actually also supported in modern JavaScript also. Now with classes, as I just said, you can define blueprints for objects, which you plan on initiating. For example, here I could create a person class, or let's maybe create a student class student, like this, and then you can add properties and methods to this class. So for example, here we could say that every student should have a first name property, first name, and we can assign types to these properties to make it clear that this first name property should have string type, string, right? And then we may also have a lost name of same string type. Here you should use semicolon instead of these commas, as you're defining variables inside this class, and one more variable called age, which is of number type, right? And maybe a courses array, which is an array of strings like courses string, and we'll give this parenthesis to make it array of strings. Now with that, we define such a blueprint here for the student class. We can also define a constructor function to this class, or constructor method, you can call it as. Let me create a constructor here. You can give constructor like that, and let me take the first name here like first, it is of string type, and you can take the last name of string type, and then age of number type, and then courses of array of strings, like that. You have to give curly braces here, and that's how we define this constructor here. As you see, I have the same argument names as I have properties thereafter here. We could then set first name like this dot first name equal to first, then this dot last name equal to last, and then age equal to age, then courses is equal to courses. I should convert this capital S to small s, because this should be normal string, not the object strings, right? The primitive type. It should be of primitive type string. Now we got rid of this error here. So by creating this constructor, when we create an object of the student class, this constructor will be called by default, and we should pass all of these parameters to that object while we creating that. Let me create an object here. I will store the object in constant student variable equal to, I can use new keyword to create new object and give the class name that we defined there, student, and we have to send all the arguments. Like the first name, let me say it as KD, and the last name, it is code, and the age, let us take it as 25 for example, and the courses array of strings, right? So let me take it as TypeScript, right? Like that. So that's how we define our new object here. After you created this object, we can access those variables using the dot operator. You can click on dot here, student dot, you can see all the parameters here, age, courses, first name, last name. You can access them by using this dot operator, right? Not only the parameters, you can also access the methods inside this class, which we'll be creating now. So let's create a method inside this student class. Let's say the enroll method, enroll, which allows us to enroll the student to a new course, and therefore we accept a course name as an argument here and then add it to the courses array, right? So let's consider a parameter, that is course name, which is of string type, right? Then we can use this dot, this courses variable, then push of this course name, like that. So what this function is basically doing, this is taking an argument that is of course name, it's just taking one course and pushing it to the courses array. That's how you add a method to such class. This is method shorthand notation. You have the method name here and the parameter list here, therefore the function body inside these curly braces. So it's basically defined like regular JavaScript function, which is important difference is there you will be using the function keyword here like this. It is not required here. Without any such function keywords, we can create this method here, right? So now we can call this method here student dot, we can call this enroll method, and I will be sending a course name that is Angular. So if you try to access this variable courses, that is array of courses, array of strings with different courses, now you will be getting a list of courses. In the first position it will be TypeScript, and the second position it will be Angular, right, as I'm doing this addition here. Now the special thing about TypeScript and classes here is that we have defined all the properties here, and this class will have this in advance, and we will be setting the types for those different properties also. In standard JavaScript we won't do that, right? We would not have these property assignments. Instead, properties would be added just setting them inside this constructor. With TypeScript, you can define them ahead of the time, including their types here. And also, it's very important with the TypeScript, you can control whether a property or a method should be publicly accessible or if it should be private variable, right? Like if it is private, it can only be accessible inside this class, and if it is public, I can do this student dot. So you can see the variable names and method names. By default, they are all public, but if you want to make them private, and can be used and should be used inside only the class, you can also do that. So by default all these properties and methods are public because by default I can access them all, right? But we could say that courses should be private by adding the private keyword in front of the property definition, like private here, right? So if I want to try to access that courses variable here using dot notation, it is not visible here, you see, because it is not a public variable which can be accessible outside the class, right? And then we could of course add another method here like list of courses, like that, and in this function we just return the list of courses that the student has enrolled. And doing like this will not give much gain. Instead I will be sending a copy, that is the slice of this array, so it won't be sending the address of this variable where the user can change the values inside this courses variable outside the class. Instead it will send only the copy of this array, right? So if I try to access this courses variable here, it will show me an error as it is not a public variable, it is private, so it should not be accessible. But instead if you want to access all the courses, you can just call this function list of courses and you can just print it to get the list of courses the student has been assigned to, right? And one more thing to learn here is instead of defining these properties here and the types, you can add these modifiers, these accessory keywords in front of these parameters in the constructor method itself. Like you can remove all of these here and you can just mention it here like public, and you just change this name as first name and last name. You have to mention it as public. Age is also public, but courses it is private, right? So I will mention it as private, and that should be set up as public properties and they are private in front of all the parameters which should be set up as a private properties. Then you don't assign values like this here, so I just remove them. If I format this, shift alt F, now this will lead to the same result as before. This is a shorthand notation for defining certain properties of this class and their types, right? So this will allow the user to assign those values to those properties when the class is being assigned here. Now this is all about classes. Now let's try to learn about interfaces. Interfaces is a feature that's only exists in Typescript, not in the JavaScript. And any interface code which you write here, you will see it in a second, will therefore not be compiled to JavaScript. Now what are the interfaces? In their most basic form, interfaces are really just object type definitions. So we could say that we have a human object here. Like you can use keyword interface and the name for the interface, like let's say human, and a curly braces after that. So I'm just considering a human object here in our application, and we can define it like this. After these curly braces, we can define the structure we want for this human object. Like this human may have the first name with a string type, right? And then let's say age with a number type, and let's say this human has a method called greet, in which he will be greeting all the members, right, other humans. It is of void type. Let me do this. I am not writing any code inside this structure, I'm just defining the types here, right? We just add the method definitions here, not the actual code. We just add the types to this first name and age. We don't assign the values here, and this interface will take no parameters as an input and returns nothing. It's just we use it to define an object type definition. Now we can use this interface, as I just said, as an object type. So if I have a new variable called KD code member, right? This KD code member, I want to store some information about this KD code member. I could make it clear that this should be a type human. So I can make it as human type by giving this. Let me create this variable, let KD code member with a type human. I can give the type as human. So this make it clear that this should be the type of human, like this. And now if I want to assign a value, I'm not allowed to store it. Like if I want to store some number like 45, it will show an error because this is an object type of human. I'm not able to store any other values other than the same structure it has here, right? So I have to store the same structure here. So I'm giving it curly braces here, and I'm assigning the first name here. It will also give the auto completions for you. First name as KD code, and then age, let's say 25. And then I have to complete this greet function also, that is greet method here. Greet, I'm not just writing anything inside here. Like even if I don't write any code inside this greet function, I should just implement it, so it will get rid of this error here. And now this works because this object which we store in this KD code member will fulfill all the structure requirements for this human, right? So we use interfaces to define object types like this, but we could also do this with a type keyword, right? Using type here and type human equal to, like this we can also define a type. But why we are using interface instead? Why do you think? Why do you think we use this interface if we do the same thing with the type keyword? Because it can be used as an alternate to the type keyword, right? But there is a difference. Interfaces can be implemented by only classes. Interfaces can be implemented by these classes. And when they use this interface, the classes are forced to have the structure defined by the interface. Now this might sound very abstract, but this can be helpful if you are building an application with multiple developers. And if you want to ensure that there are certain classes written by another developer has a certain structure, because you as a part of working your needs, you should be in need of that structure. So you need the class to have certain method For example, in this case, you will want to have this greet function for every human, and if you define an interface here and make a class implement this interface, that other developer should implement all these methods or assign these variables inside this interface, because it's a must, because you are making the class to implement this interface, right? So that's the difference. You will force to add those certain feature to the class we define, and it will work with a lot of classes when we are working with Angular. Let's say I have a class called carry code. For this carry code, I want to implement this interface humans and give a curly braces here. So there is an error here. If I hover on it, it says this is incorrectly implements the interface, as carry code is missing the properties of human interface, right? The first name, age, and greet function. So whenever I create these variables and the methods, let's say first name and then age and then the greet function, so I'm not implementing them, but these must be defined inside this class in order to get rid of this error, because as a developer I need this carry code class to implement this human interface. That the other developer must define all of them, because he doesn't have other choice to get rid of this error. So by using this interface, I can define the structure of the certain class and I can make it correctly implementing this interface. So they don't just act as object types, instead they also force us to set up this certain structure for our classes. So this is the advantage of these interfaces in TypeScript. We use them in the Angular application project we are doing in this course a lot. So that's it about the classes and interfaces in this video. If you have any doubts, please comment down below. Please subscribe and check out other videos in the channel. Thank you. Thanks for watching.